Welcome, welcome, welcome to Shit City. Population, almost everyone involved in this film. There are two really big, glaring, obvious problems with this film. I'm going to talk about the first one now and save the other one for later so that hopefully you will keep watching this review because, well, frankly, I just need the attention. The first really big, glaring problem is the cinematography in this movie. It is terrible. Just terrible. It seems like every single shot of this film is an extreme close-up. I mean, it really is not an exaggeration to say that there is scarcely a medium, let alone a long shot, in the film. I mean, some scenes don't even bother with establishing long shots so we get a sense of the environment that we're in. I've never seen a film that's this big be claustrophobic. I mean, there were times where I really felt physically trapped. Like, I wanted to see what was going on in the environment that the characters were in, but all we got were their faces. That's suffocating. And worse, I think, it's really hard on actors. I mean, you know when you're acting that the camera is in so tight that people can see the tiny imperfections of your face. Every little movement, every little mannerism is up under a microscope, and you have to sing an entire 3-minute song with just your face. Not only is that not engaging for the audience, it is torturous to do that to actors. And what's the result? The result is 3 minutes of boring and gratuitous. A 3-minute talking head soliloquy that just stops the movie dead. This happens several times. And I kept thinking, why don't they use the environment? Why don't they find a way to make the song move? The only songs that I felt were really done well were the big chorus numbers, particularly Look Down, the reprise when they go to Paris in the middle of the first act. And At the End of the Day. I thought those two songs were done very well. And interestingly, they seem to use the environment more in Russell Crowe's solos, Stars Engiver's soliloquy, but we will come to him later. Ultimately, I understand that they were making a choice with the cinematography. It was a choice. It was a wrong choice. Moving on. I was startled at how uneven the movie was in a lot of ways, particularly how tonally uneven it was. And also how unevenly the film was cast. First of all, in terms of tone, Les Mis is a very bleak story. Everybody knows that. The writers knew that when they sat down to write the original stage version of the show, because they made the Thénardiers the comic relief. So in that sense, the Thénardiers are really essential to the success of telling this story. They need to work, they need to be funny, they need to be a welcome distraction from all of the other stuff that's going on in the story. But here they didn't quite work. Particularly Master of the House was really a bit of a train wreck. Why? Because the first part of the film with Fantine is so horrendous that any attempts at humor after that are doomed to failure. And sure, that part of the story is dark in the musical too, but the film takes it to whole new depths. Inside 5 minutes, you have Fantine dying horribly, and then you have Sacha Baron Cohen hopping out with his clown nose on, trying to get yucks out of the audience. If you watch a snuff film, and then watch Mr. Bean won't be funny, he'll just be grotesque. About the unevenness in the casting. What I mean by that is that in the supporting roles, you have actors who are clearly very capable singers, playing Marius, playing Eponine, playing Enjolras. You have people who can sing and who can act and who can do both at the same time. In the lead roles, you have Hugh Jackman, who, if he was as good as he thinks he is, would win the Tony every year, and Russell Crowe, who looks completely out of place. So you see, we have a cast that runs the gamut from Samantha Barks, who is a legitimate musical theater actress who knows what she's doing and does it exceedingly well, to Hollywood superstars who are way in over their heads and are overmatched by their parts. Before I move on to talk specifically about the music, I just want to say a few words about Helena Bonham Carter being in this film. really only one word, and that word is lazy. Oh my god, so lazy. Was it like the first thing that came into the casting director's mind? Jesus Christ, do we really need Helena Bonham Carter to be in this film? I kind of understand Sacha Baron Cohen, okay? I get it. He's well suited for his part. She's not even well suited to play Madame Thénardier. Madame Thénardier is supposed to be a fat chick part. Come on, this is a part for Melissa McCarthy, not Jenny McCarthy. Let skinny bitches play skinny bitch parts. There are only so many parts for funny fat chicks. Really not enough of them. Let them have that, for God's sake. Okay, on to the music. I understand here that they were making a choice in deciding that they were going to use the live recordings from on set as the vocal tracks for the film. That's a daring choice. It takes some balls. And on the other hand, you end up with songs that sound bad. Is there really anything from this soundtrack that anybody would want to buy on iTunes? A lot of the songs barely sound like the source material that they come from. And hey, ultimately, this is a musical, and in a musical, the music comes first. Thank you, Adam Lambert. Never thought I'd have to say that. I appreciate the effort to take the show away from the pretty sing-song style, but this took it way too far in the other direction. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the second really big, glaring, obvious problem that I mentioned at the beginning of this gigantic shit that we're taking together. And what is that really big, glaring problem? It's Russell Crowe. This is actually a little bit difficult for me because while I have an impulse towards criticism and a desire for things to be better, at the same time, I felt really, really bad for Russell Crowe all through this film. I physically felt pity for him. Not for his character, but for him as a human being, as a fellow actor. I felt that he was just way in over his head with no way out. And hey, it's hard. It's hard to stand in front of people and sing in front of the entire world because there's really nothing more personal than your voice. So whether someone is good or bad, on some level you do have to respect the risk that they're taking. And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But then on the other hand, this is the big leagues, so fuck it. Russell Crowe has given some lamentable performances in forgettable films, but this must go down as the worst ever. It's not even like you can say, well, you know, he's not the greatest singer in the world, but he acted his way through it, because he didn't. And I suspect actually that he couldn't, because he was so focused on just trying to sing, because he clearly cannot sing. He brought virtually nothing to a part that is really a gift to an actor. And you could see that it was taking him a lot of effort just to get through the vocalizations of the scene. And even at that, he didn't sound good. He didn't sound good at all. He sounded like a high school understudy with a sinus infection. There were times where he was actually hard to understand. I don't know what producer saw his screen test and said, no, I think he can hack it, but he couldn't, and they should be shot. And the worst thing is that I think Russell Crowe would be a really, really capable Javert in a film where he didn't have to sing. If it wasn't a musical, I think he'd be a smart choice. And like I said, there's a lot there for an actor. Javert is an interesting character, not so much a villain as a misguided hero. And there's a lot of subtlety there, and we see none of it. And really, why was he there? What did Russell Crowe bring in for the producers that no other actor could bring in? If you were going to cast an unknown actor or a lesser-known actor who perhaps was a better singer, would it have been so disastrous for the box office? Did they really need Russell Crowe's draw? I guess you could argue that Russell Crowe was there so that men who were dragged to this movie by their wives didn't feel like they were at the ice capades. But it was so painful, his performance was so painful, that even at that it would have been better to just cast somebody who could sing. Moving right along, one of the really, really big problems with the film, I think, is that it wallowed in pity for itself. This is the ultimate example of a film that thinks that when the characters cry, you must cry. Jesus, this movie is all about crying and whining and dying and crying and pain and suffering and misery and poverty and depravity. All things that are in the musical, yes, but presented with a good deal more subtlety. And in the musical, Fantine can't weep her way through her part because she has to actually sing. And by the by, here's a note for all young actors, particularly female actors. We get it. You can cry. Congratulations. I'm actually more impressed when I see young actors doing a scene or a monologue or a song where they know they can cry, but they manage to hold it back and do something less fucking passive. There is a difference between wallowing in sorrow and working through sorrow. This movie does the former way, way, way too much. And who wants to see that, really? Who wants to sit around and watch people suffer for 2.5 hours? There's a word for people who like that. CNN's audience? No, the word is sadist. And if you happen to be a sadist, this film comes highly recommended. If crying were an Olympic sport, this movie would be Michael Phelps. The last negative thing I want to say about this film is actually a question. Was this film made for any real artistic reasons, or was it made for monetary reasons? This movie is just digging up the corpse of a 27-year-old franchise and fucking it until cash comes out. This movie really didn't need to be made, and if it did have to be made in any case, it could have been made better.
Did you see them going off to fight? Children of the barricades who didn't last the night.
Now it's time to put the finishing touches on our shit sandwich. So, on what positive note can I leave this review? Well, I want to say this for director Tom Hooper and the producers of this film. It's not your run-of-the-mill movie musical. It really isn't. They made some daring choices, some choices I didn't like, some choices that I thought affected the quality of the product, affected the ability of the audience to engage with the material that they were presenting. But they did make choices. They made difficult choices. They made dangerous choices. The choice to record vocal tracks on set, live recordings of actors performing, that's a bold choice, as I said before, and I think whether it worked or didn't work, I will always give credit to people for taking risks. Granted, they had to. When you're presenting a movie version of a show like this, it's been running for 27 years. Hundreds of millions of people have seen this show. Anybody who ever wanted to see this show has probably seen it, and probably seen it twice. So you're presenting something that people are very familiar with, and if you don't find a way to distinguish the film from the stage production of the show, then you're just sort of saturating your market. You're not giving people anything new, anything that's worth coming back for. I also want to say that although I took shots at Hugh Jackman earlier, he was actually better than I was expecting him to be. There were moments, but there's no denying he brought a certain amount of charm and lovability into a role that I really didn't think he was right for. I'm still not convinced he's right for it. He certainly isn't right for it vocally. I'm not convinced he's right for it as an actor either. But it's obvious that he put in a lot of work to do what he did. I respect the work he put in, and he was, like I said, he was better overall than I was expecting him to be. I would also be remiss not to mention that there were some legitimately stirring moments in this film. There were times when I got spine tingles, when I really felt the first draw that I felt when I was a small child, when I was drawn to the story, to the music, to the characters, to the themes of Les Mis. There was some of that there. The movie did manage to create that feeling on a couple of occasions, particularly with the students. Do you hear the people sing? Red and Black, etc. And although I feel like the negative aspects of the film significantly outweighed the positive aspects, that doesn't mean that I should disregard the positive aspects of the film. And there were moments that were handled very admirably, just as there were moments that were completely squashed. All things considered, it looks like this film has accomplished what the producers wanted it to accomplish. So in some sense, you have to call it a success. If you are someone who knows the show well, who has a certain nostalgic appreciation for the show, you'll probably enjoy the film. If you're somebody who hasn't seen the show before, doesn't know anything about the show, well then again, you might be drawn in by the sheer spectacle of the film and by the story, because it is a very powerful story, and you can do a lot of things wrong, but it's hard to take the shine off of a compelling story. And I think that's it. We've made our shit sandwich, and now, if you'll excuse me, I am starving.